Thank you to YouTube Premium for sponsoring this video with a special offer for my viewers. More details to come later in the video. Scores. For a little while there, it was what gamers lived for, the very metric by which gamers were judged. You didn't beat a game, you got a new high score, then proceeded to vandalize the leaderboard with some 3-letter abomination. Now, some may argue that the utility of such a feature died with the arcades, though it stuck around for a good deal longer. But when, as is the case in Kirby's Dreamland, your game can be beaten within an hour, high score chasing does give you an extra boost to replayability. But we are, of course, not high score chasers. Today, we're doing the exact opposite. Because today I ask you this: what is the lowest score required to beat Kirby's Dreamland? So what are we actually trying to do here? Well, you see this number at the bottom of the screen? We're trying to keep it as close to 0 as possible. There are a few different things that can cause our score to increase, but the big one is enemies. Defeating any enemy causes the score to increase by a varying amount of points depending on the enemy defeated. So we just don't attack, right? Turn the other cheek and all that. Well, it's not that simple. You see, Kirby is so powerful that even in defeat, he claims victory. That is to say that when enemies run into him, which is how a good deal of them attack, they die, and as a result give us points. That means not only must we avoid attacking any enemies, we also can't afford to so much as touch them. Easier said than done, considering the decent density of enemies that appear on the screen in Kirby's Dreamland. But we do have the ability to hover, which certainly helps. Flying doesn't get you completely out of danger though. You've got to be careful to, and I'm serious about this, quite literally not breathe on the enemies when you deactivate hovering. That being said, with a bit of patience and finesse, you can at least weave through the skies of the opening of Green Greens successfully. A ride on this warp star brings us to our first boss fight. Now, boss fights in this game are annoying for a couple of reasons. Firstly, they force us out of our pacifist ways, since we have to defeat an enemy in order to progress. This forces points upon us. The other issue is that during a boss fight, our score tracker is replaced by the much less useful UI element of the boss's health bar. That means we can't see what gives us points in a boss fight. Not in real time, anyway. Now, you wouldn't think that'd be an issue, really, except for the fact that in this boss fight, I finished with scores of 3,030, 3,050, and 3,090 points. And without the real-time data, now we've got to do some sleuthing to figure out what exactly caused the discrepancies and determine the true minimum amount of points we can get out of here with, and how to do that. It became immediately obvious that the 3,000 points were tied to the defeat of the enemy itself. Whether that's allotted as 3,000 for defeating it, or 1,000 per hit, I don't know, but the distinction really doesn't matter. In addition to that, it would seem that inhaling the bombs gives us 10 points each time we do it. That's the only way to damage this guy, as slides and air puffs don't do the trick, which is generally the case for bosses in this, and just about every Kirby game. The main difference with this one is copy abilities don't exist, so we can't use them to damage the bosses. Anyway, with the boss having 3 health, that adds another 30 points to the minimum score required to beat the boss, putting the minimum at 3,030. Now, what about those attempts with more points? What happened there and how do we avoid it? Well, you can obviously get extra points if you end up inhaling more bombs, which can be necessitated if you miss any of your shots at the boss. So, don't do that. But in addition, you seem to gain points for running into a bomb as well, for some reason. So, avoid that too, I guess. But overall, this boss isn't too hard once you understand exactly what to do and what to avoid. We float through another couple crowded screens and discover along the way that destroying blocks nets you 20 points per block. Luckily, there's no blocks that have to be broken here. There is, however, a door that this Waddle Dee is patrolling in front of quite diligently. But you can just slip by and enter the Whispy Woods fight. For this boss fight, we pretty reliably gain 11,200 points. I'd be willing to bet this breakdown is as a result of 10,000 for the boss itself, plus 200 points per apple inhaled, which we have to do 6 times in order to hit the boss 6 times. As such, I'm pretty sure that's the minimum required here, leading to a new total of 14,230. Castle Lololo starts with Mike, arguably the first copy ability in Kirby history, but we can't touch it lest we get points. Anyway, aside from that, the castle is certainly more annoying to traverse than the woods were, in light of the cramped hallways and ambushing enemies. There's potential for a split path in this room, but all paths converge at this boss fight. Again, this one's pretty simple if you don't miss. I walked out of here with 4,600 points, I'm assuming 4,000 from the boss, plus 200 per box I inhaled. As you're making your way through the castle, you want to avoid entering this room, and when entering this screen, move fast, or else. That brings us to the main boss of the level, which is fought in the same way as the mid-boss. Though I will say, a particularly effective strategy here to avoid getting hit unnecessarily or missing your shots is to inhale the block, then flee. Then wait to spit it out until you can ambush Lololo or Lololo from behind. Now I was a bit confused upon finishing this fight, because according to the Kirby wiki, I gained less points than even just the base value of the boss? Seriously, according to the wiki, just the pair of bosses are worth 16,500 points, and I only gained 7,700 points from this fight. So, what was the insane strategy I came up with to more than halve the boss's points? Well, there wasn't one. I think the wiki just has a typo, which one of you viewers really ought to go fix. You see, if we assume the boxes are worth 200 points to inhale again, that's 1,200 points from that in total, meaning the boss gave us an additional 6,500 points. So I'm pretty sure that the wiki just has a leading one where it's not supposed to be. In any case, we move on to Float Islands with a total score of 26,530 points. If you thought the prior stages involved some tight squeezes, you ain't seen nothing yet. These caves especially require precision to trespass through successfully. But all those close calls just get you to this wall, and yeah, you guessed it. Breaking blocks here scores you 20 points per block destroyed. And with 3 layers of wall to get through, that's another 60 points added to the total. But that's not quite precisely true, because inhaling a block only scores you 10 points. So 30 then, right? Well, it's not that simple. Once you've inhaled a block, you've got to spit it out to avoid getting any more points from it. But when you're standing here in the middle of all these other blocks, where exactly are you going to spit out that block in a direction that won't break any more blocks? Well, the answer is you make sure you've got a window carved out just for that purpose. Oh, and also make sure to not accidentally eat this crab while you're tearing down the walls. But overall, yes, you can get through here with just another 30 points. Then after that set of tricky blocks, there are 2 more blocks that we gotta get through, but they're a lot simpler to deal with, and worth another 20 points in total. The boat section is much easier than the cave was. You really can just fly across the top of the screen, more or less. That quickly leads us to the blimp boss, which doesn't involve any messy factors like having to inhale things to attack. So we beat it, adding a simple, even 20,000 points, bringing our total to 46,580. Bubbly Clouds and a toast of Scarfies gives us another couple good squeezes to navigate, but nothing impossible. Honestly, the Waddle-Doos were probably harder to get by without taking damage, so I just took some damage. Luckily, these don't attack via kamikaze, so they don't give us any points upon being hit by them. But yeah, overall, this level is pretty claustrophobic, a lot of tight spaces. Anyway, that brings us to Krako Jr., who's worth 7,500 points to defeat, but he also has 3 health that we need to inhale 3 enemies at 200 points a pop to chip away at. That adds up to 8,100 points in total, putting us at 54,680. After that, we've got this mint leaf section to contend with, and this massive wall. The wall is 8 blocks wide, with each block worth 20 points to destroy, giving us another 160 points. But not so fast. Firstly, we don't actually have to grab the mint leaf, meaning we can inhale instead of outright destroying the blocks, having our point gain. Plus, we can attack on a layer with a gap in it, allowing us to get through after inhaling just 7 blocks, giving us another 70 points and a new total of 54,750. Until we reach this line of 36 more blocks. Great. New total score of 55,110. Krako is similar to the previous boss fight, just with more health and a higher base point reward. All in all, it gets us another 26,200 points, giving us a new total of 81,310. finally we've made it to Mount Dedede, where in turn we're going to have to go through some levelets themed after the stages we've beaten to get here, as well as some bosses. There's just one little wrinkle. These helper Kirbys, which you must touch to enter the boss fights. But they additionally wipe the screen of any and all enemies, giving you the points for any enemies defeated this way. This one prior to Whispy Woods gives you 400 points for defeating this capless Cappy. And since he doesn't move, the best we can do is inhale him to have the points we get. There's a similar situation prior to Krako's rematch, but with 3 enemies this time, giving us another 600 points. Aside from that, we refight every major boss in the game. Whispy Woods, Lololo and Lololo, the Blimp, and Krako, giving us another 11,200, 7,700, 20,000, and 26,200 points respectively. All that together puts us at 147,210 points as we enter to face King Dedede. Now Dedede has loads of health, but here's the catch. We don't have to inhale enemies to attack him. Instead, we get to inhale impact stars directly, which apparently don't give you any points. But don't get too excited. Dedede himself certainly does give us points, to the tune of 100,000 points, specifically. I guess it's at least an easy number to add to the total. Now as the credits roll, we have our answer. The lowest score required to beat Kirby's Dreamland is 247,210. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, likes, comments, subscriptions would be much appreciated. If you like specifically to see me trying to go for low scores, I did this sort of challenge on Super Mario 3D World a ways back, so you may want to check out that one. And of course, if you want to help support the channel in a fairly significant way without even having to spend a dime, use my link to check out and try your free trial of YouTube Premium. And of course, before I go, I should thank my wonderful patrons, including my $15 tier patrons, Alex Octoling and Ashford Says. But anyways, until next time, I've been CMeeCraft, and I'll catch you in the next video. Goodbye.